Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Rossi, and I am an artist member of IMAGO Gallery. I have an exhibit this month entitled Finding Connections. I primarily work with oil and encaustic and mixed media. This particular show incorporates all three techniques because it's basically about our connection to life and life's force. My process for this exhibit was to buy some big, huge panels, and because I'm thinking large, I'm thinking how our connection flows from humanity to nature to the plant life to the essential energy that keeps us alive and connects us. But I wasn't really quite sure what medium I was going to use and what form it would ultimately take. So I started with oils, which takes a lot of time because you have to, if you're doing any kind of glazing, you have to let it dry in between. So I decided I would work with the background and build up the background, and yet still didn't have a concept of what form was going to go onto these backgrounds. So then I moved to paper and canvas using mixed media acrylic paint, which dries really fast and allows you to move much more quickly and play around with the concepts. So after I had my larger pieces, the backgrounds built up, I decided I wanted to go to the landscape and work with our connection to the landscape and get some feel for how I was going to develop that connection on canvas. So I took photos, I did drawings, and then I decided to do a mixed media piece on paper. And the reason I went to mixed media is because it dries quickly and allows you to embed different forms. And like I have paper, I have fabric, and then ultimately I ended up using oil paint on the surface to create a deeper color. And so the deeper I went with the color, the deeper sensation I had working with this, with my connection to the earth. You know, not only the feel of the paint and the paintbrush, but the fabric, the fabric of our lives, and our connection to both natural things, and I also believe we have an energetic connection to inanimate things, which I really feel when I'm working with paint. After I finished working with our connection with nature and using mixed media, I decided to work with form, and both sort of unconscious form as well as conscious form. So forms that aren't really human, but they're not really animal, hopefully not recognizable. So I was doing a mixed media piece on canvas, and I started with acrylic paint, and it looked like a flying horse. So when you saw it, that's the first reaction you got was a flying horse. So I put it aside because I liked some parts of it, but felt like it wasn't really speaking to me or really saying that, giving me that sense of connected bodies, connected forms. So I put it aside and then decided I could, now that I had this concept of forms and form with connections, go back to the bigger pieces and start laying some forms onto those bigger canvases. So ultimately, after I was working with forms on the big canvas, I went back to the smaller forms, which looked like a flying horse, and decided that I wanted to make it look more ethereal, more less concrete than my other forms, more so again, forms, not just a single form, not a recognizable form, but forms with a lot of texture, but they still felt like they were merging into the atmosphere. So I've gotten most of the texture that I want onto this canvas, but I still see some spaces that I want to lighten up, because after I lighten it all up, I'm going to go in and glaze and get it to merge back into the atmosphere and work with both the background and the foreground. And I finally got it where I believe that you can see sort of these very atmospheric shapes starting to emerge. So I'm going to show you just a couple of techniques that I use with mixed media. And then I'm just going to take a little bit of this color and put it into the background. And then I have to let it dry because I'm working now with oil paint. Remember, I started with acrylic, so now basically it's a little bit thick in spaces, so I probably will have to wait at least 2 to 3 days before it will dry, which will give me time to go work on my other big paintings. So while my embryonic form painting dries, I'm going to come back to these large oil paintings And this one's almost done, and I'm going to just do some line. And for me, this painting represents connection to animal and human nature. These figures are both sort of humanistic and animalistic. And then I will work on this painting, which needs some glazing, and these figures are really abstract, and I think partly animal, partly human as well. But they're more closely connected, they're most closely joined, and I'm trying to show that by layering, by transparency and opacity, showing how figures can be so almost merged together. And that's the final sort of connection, is that we merge with the universe, we merge with each other through this life-giving energy that we all share. Since exploring basically the nature of everything, I'm still taking that theme forward in my work. I think I'll be focusing more on the merging of form, so that it really is very abstract but still has forms and has many layers. Much like what I do with the encaustic, but doing it also with paint. And I think paint has much more of a grounded feeling, and the wax has much more of an ethereal feeling. So that's why I'm going to be using both mediums going forward.